Welcome to Econ Lessons. In this video, I'm going to show you the basics of supply and demand, how to draw it, so if you come across it in an exam, you'll be prepared. A lot of people go over supply and demand in a very fast format, show you the graph, and you're like, yes, I know this. But to really slow down and look at the dynamics of how you draw it and what the labels are important, because this is what is typically on the exam. So let's take a look. In a market economy, it's where consumers and sellers meet. And it is this interaction between buyers and sellers that create the supply and demand curve. First thing you want to ask yourself, what is on the y-axis, y to the sky? It's price. And then you have to get quantity right. A number of my students get these labels wrong. Then you start drawing a downward sloping curve and an upward sloping curve. What's on the downward sloping curve? What's on the upward sloping curve? A lot of my students reverse this. Demand is down, supply to the sky. So these are the two, this is a mnemonic you can remember. So once you have the X and Y axis labeled and the supply and demand curve, it's pretty straightforward. You find an equilibrium price. You find a price where supply and demand meet, and you can draw it down with two straight lines. If you're doing it on an exam, you might want to draw a few of these. This is the equilibrium price. Equilibrium means balance. It's a balance between two groups of individuals, participants. And when you're out of balance, it's called disequilibrium. But equilibrium is where the price for both the consumer and the producer meet. There's equal benefit. Consumer surplus and producer surplus. Marginal benefit, marginal cost. A shift in the supply curve to the right is represented simply on the graph as a lower price and a higher quantity. What causes a shift to the right of the supply curve? You need to know this for the exam. The most common one is improvements in technology. There's a number of reasons the supply curve shifts, and I have another video for that. But improvements in technology is what we associate with progress. We do things better and better, and whether it be AI or electrification, rail improvements, GPS, whatever technology has come about, the internet, it allows us to increase the production process with the capital we have. A supply shift to the left. What causes this? On an exam, you need to know what might cause it. Again, I have shifters of the supply and demand curve. Most typically, it's a natural disaster, like a hurricane or a freeze over the Florida orange crop. There'll be less supply, less quantity, so the existent commodities exist at a higher price, given a certain demand. There could be war, embargoes, trade embargoes, other things. War, what is it good for? Nothing. It just destroys. Doesn't stimulate the economy. That's a fallacy. So we have shifts to the left. Now, when we have these shifts, we want to be thinking about how, in a macro sense, can we facilitate innovation and the entrepreneur to shift the supply curve to the right. So this will result in deflationary policy, which is a very positive thing for the economy. And I also have a video on deflation if you want to understand that a little bit better. So we've learned supply-demand interaction of these two curves and a shift of how you shift left and right of the supply. Now, a shift in the demand curve up to the right, again, there's usually 5 shifters of the demand curve. But in this video, we're just going to look at one shifter, which I think is probably the primary driver. What is the primary driver? It's preferences, consumer preferences. If one type of fashion is in this year, then everybody goes for it. If one particular music artist or program is in, this is what people are demanding, or type of food, whether it be sushi this year or some potato the next year, designer heirloom local potato. So you can see in this that we have a demand for, let's say, Italian local heirloom products. That's a shift in the demand curve. Everybody wants it, so the price is higher. Now, what would cause a shift downward in the demand curve? Why would people not be interested simply in buying something? They might not be interested is, again, if preferences, it goes out of style. Something becomes obsolete or is replaced. The most notable example I can think of when it relates to the computer is the typewriter. Why would you use a typewriter? Maybe there's some retro nostalgic reason, but the word processor and then subsequently programs on the web have replaced it. So really, we're looking at an interaction of supply and demand, and the consumer wins. The producer wins also. And we get a multiple amounts of choices. Price being an information point. It's an intertemporal information point that tells us how we can maximize consumer happiness and producer happiness. And the market, as you see from the shifting, will adjust. So I hope you like my video. Give it a thumbs up, click subscribe, and I'll have more videos that will explain clearly and precisely principles of economics and some ideas in economics that perhaps are a little bit different than you might hear. Thank you.